All right, our special guest today is Bryan Kopp. And besides being an international portrait photographer at the Visual Nomad, he's also a developmental mercenary who coaches those who are ready to change or die. So, welcome, Bryan.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Jenny.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, tell us, what does a developmental mercenary do?
It's kind of my way of approaching coaching that certainly has some like core fundamentals to the coaching process, but is really flexible in how I approach working with each individual client. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't have any specific loyalties to a perspective or one method. I feel like I'll do whatever it takes to meet people where they're at and help them on whatever it is that's really important for them.
Yeah, I love that approach. Um, and how did you get started with this whole thing? Like, what made you decide that this is what you want to do with your life?
I feel like it's been kind of a multi-year evolution. After high school, I started working on some of my own projects and just following anything that interested me. And it took almost 10 years to kind of fall into coaching where previously I had traveled, I had learned how to fly planes, I had worked in photography, and each little adventure or project was teaching me something about myself and a skill that was really important and meaningful, but it was also incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
And when I kind of took a step back and laid everything out on the table, I started to notice that connecting with people was sort of this underlying trait that kept showing up over and over and over again. And my dad was actually trained as a coach when I was a kid, and he's not even a practicing coach, but it really had a lot to do with, or kind of his experience bled into our family experience. So in many respects, I think I was coached a lot as a kid, and we had really high quality conversation just around the dinner table. And I started kind of exploring what that looked like for my own life in the present, and just kind of fell into it and did a lot of it last year for free, just exploring what coaching looked like. And now it's what I do. It's really just like the best fit to date of pulling from what I enjoy and connecting with people, and then really serving in probably the most meaningful way that I've been able to serve ever before.
Mm-hmm. And well, you are doing a lot of things on the side. So how does that integrate with the coaching? Like, I mean, you didn't just give that up, right? You're still doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely shifted around. My priorities and my day-to-day work really does reflect, coaching as my profession. But I do still travel, and I do still take photographs, and I do still fly planes on occasion. So to me, those have taken more of a backseat at the moment. But the whole approach to coaching that I take is really designed to serve my clients in whatever way I can, but also give me the flexibility to really be like a low profile entrepreneur, and so I do work with clients every day, almost always from Skype or phone call, but that does give me the flexibility to kind of live a little bit out of the city, kind of in the woods, and take really good care of myself and stay active and do those other things. So it's kind of been an experimentation process to figure out how I need to serve to both take care of my clients and myself.
Mm-hmm. And so was that a conscious decision to create the coaching business with the aim to be able to live that lifestyle, or did that just kind of happen?
Oh, it was definitely conscious, and I think that was one of the things that I was sort of pulled to do after running experiments with different professions prior
Mm-hmm.
to coaching. I really enjoyed aviation, but I knew that there were aspects of that lifestyle that I wasn't interested in, and I really enjoyed travel and international portraiture. But in the end, I really enjoyed my personal work a lot more than the professional work. I had great clients, but I felt like it was still impeding my ability to be consistent with a lot of the practices and areas of life that were important to me. And so coaching allowed me to create some space and some flexibility that really facilitated my own freedom, my own independence, as well as, you know, generating income and serving. Because I feel like so much of my own life is, I wouldn't say it's solely dependent on, but it's largely dependent on, you know, whether I feel like I'm creating value, whether I'm really helping people change in ways that's meaningful for them. So coaching for me is kind of the best composite fit of all those different things that really makes me tick.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting. So what's your view on the statement, you have to follow your passion, and, you know, if you want to live a happy life, you have to live your passion every day? What do you think about that?
Well, you know, for me, I have so many different passions that I think the best answer is you have to follow a passion and be willing to experiment. You know, with that exception or that qualifier, I feel like the more one's able to kind of get to their own bottom line and figure out what their bottom line today or this year is, and try and act in alignment with that, the more you can kind of constantly adapt and work in that direction, while understanding that, you know, your values and your goals and your passions are probably going to change and evolve over time as your life situation unfolds. And that said, though, I mean, like, at the core, I definitely feel like, you know, you've always got to have your hand in passion, however that comes up. Because I've done a lot of like fun projects for myself, and I've done a lot of like basic jobs for other people. And even when I'm doing basic jobs for other people, I've always sort of kept myself sane when I by doing other things in addition to, you know, I've never just completely written off my own work.
Yeah, that absolutely resonates. And I love the focus on experimenting, because, I mean, with Synection, that's absolutely what we stand for. Experiment and see what happens, and then go from there. You know, you don't have to know all the answers right now, and you don't have to do what you do now for the rest of your life. But you can take it and make something better out of it, or, you know, do something different and try something completely new if you feel like it. So yeah, absolutely resonates. So one of the projects that you were doing in the beginning of this year was the 1K to Fail competition. Would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. So basically, I've noticed that in my own life, I've taken on all these different projects and pursuits in a sort of just kind of like an entrepreneurial, solopreneur perspective, in the sense that I've always jumped into something as an experiment, whether it was something that I knew was going to work, which was basically never the case, or something that I wasn't quite sure about, but I still wanted to learn or try out. And I've usually done it on a very, very small budget, and it's involved some level of risk, but more just kind of personal fear that I've had to step through. And that's slowly led me, you know, through the course of all these different experiments into coaching. And so I felt like one of the things that could be most helpful for my potential clients, or really anybody out there, is just to become more familiar with the process of, as I like to call it, taking the risk to grow. You know, moving in a direction that is really appealing or potentially passion-filled, but you're not quite sure. So essentially, I just took that idea of my own learning process and turned it into a little bit of a friendly competition to people, for people, to basically get $1,000 to spend on their own project. And I got some really, really cool submissions. We had people that wanted to travel the world, create businesses. One guy wanted to restore like an old World War II plane somewhere in Britain, I think. There was just some really creative ideas. And in the end, I felt kind of bad, because I was so torn between all the different submissions that I actually split the prize 3 ways, and gave the money to people that could basically use a chunk of that money and pretty much accomplish their original goal that they had submitted. So that was kind of my way to just, one, kind of give back to all the people that have helped me over the years, because I've had incredible amounts of generosity just to help and allow me to explore my own passions and interests, but also kind of spread the idea of taking that risk and helping people understand that they don't really need to go into debt or throw their lives away just to try something new. And oftentimes taking that one small action is enough to really get the ball rolling and to explore what it is that comes next in their lives.
Yeah. And so what would you say? Have you talked to the people who won, and like, have you like, do you have a story for us? What changed for them through the challenge? Some success story or something?
Sure. Yeah. It's fairly early on. I think I gave the prizes out a few weeks of about a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
One person bought a ticket to. I'm sure you're familiar with the World Domination Summit.
Yeah, of course.
So one person's going to that, and people can definitely look into that because it's a pretty awesome group of people. I haven't attended myself, but they've inspired me to definitely look into it.
Yeah.
One person is developing an app for families with kids that have autism.
Ooh.
She's a therapist of sorts, and so she noticed that when she goes and works with these families, she wastes a ton of time writing all of her notes out. And so she's actually going to go and create an app that records her in video doing all of the different services and therapies, so the families can then learn a little bit more hands-on and specific to their situation, and save time and money when helping their kid. And the last one was a subscription to the online learning service Linda, for a guy that wanted to learn how to code computer programming.
Yeah.
So lots of different projects and learning kind of across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool. So what would you do if somebody gave you $1,000 right now to try something new? What would that be?
That's a good question. I would be tempted to do another travel project. Just I can think of India, for example. I haven't been to India yet, and for me, what I've heard about India, what I know about India, is that it would be one of the more challenging locations to visit, perhaps by myself, and kind of get used to a different culture, a different working environment, different living situation. It would definitely push my comfort zone, but I also have a feeling that, at least photographically, it would be just, I mean, especially culturally as well, but from a portrait perspective, it could be really, really rewarding and interesting to do. So I think I would probably hit the road and go to India.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I would love to go to India, but yeah. So, what would your advice be for somebody who's trying to figure out what to do with their life? Like, they know they don't want to live the life, that's been kind of laid out for them, and instead try to create life that they really want. What would your number one advice be?
I would start by asking the question, have you actually considered the possibilities? Have you spent time, journaling or reflecting and mapping out what it is that actually puts a fire in your belly, what it is that actually lights you up? And if you have an idea, it doesn't matter how official or deep you go initially, but just do something that ties into one of those things, and just run the experiment. Because I think most people really feel like they're stuck and they don't know what to do next, but they're not really taking any action. They're finding all sorts of excuses. It's like, if I don't go big, I'm not even going to bother. And I think it's far more important to start getting real data, real experience in any way, shape, or form that relates to those passions, those interests. Because I mean, for me, most of the learning I've had has been going and doing something and coming back and saying, these are all the things I don't like about this. These are all the things I don't want to do again. Yeah. And it helps narrow down the things that I do want to do and really emphasize those things that mean the most and work the best with me. So I would say that if you have an idea, just start moving in that direction. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be, super professional, but just start getting a taste for those things that seem to be really important. And if you don't have an idea, then really stop spinning your wheels. Really sit down, take a week or a month, either in addition to your regular work or school, or if you can, take it all off completely and just go play, go create space to just explore new things, and kind of make it like a long-term brainstorm to see what does come up when you start playing and just giving yourself some space to relax.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. I love that advice. And it's so true that we just need to start doing it. And, like you said, if it's, even if it's something that we didn't like doing, it can actually help us figure out what it is that we really want to do. So like sit down and reflect on what happened, and like what worked for you and what didn't. And yeah, great advice. Thank you. So last question. What would you tell your high school self if you could travel back in time?
Looking back, I think I was, or I have been, sort of on the right track the whole time, in the sense that there was no, and we just kind of mentioned this, there's really no wrong way to learn, whether you're learning about the things you want to do or the things you don't want to do. So I wouldn't change too much, but I would probably say to go bigger sooner, in the sense that, I think I played a much smaller game and I held back a lot. Even now, I still feel like there are times when I hold back, but especially when I first graduated, I think I was pretty conservative in the risks that I took and some of the things that I considered. And I think looking back at it, there was no real reason to do that. The sooner I started taking bigger risks and really sticking my neck out and exploring new options and possibilities for what it was that I wanted to do, the faster the results started to come in. And so I feel like I would probably just go deeper, go faster, which I think at the core requires some element of trust. Trusting yourself, trusting the process, trusting, the universe to lead you in a direction that is, probably not going to kill you, but probably going to teach you some hard things along the way.
Yeah.
So.
And do you have like a way to get you there if you're in this? I guess we're in this situation where like, okay, we could play big, but we are really afraid. Like, how do you deal with that?
I mean, there are a number of kind of facets to that situation, it seems like. I would say that for any of the situations where I had the biggest transitions in my life, the biggest jumps or the biggest points of growth, it was always helpful to have somebody really important, really trustworthy, really insightful to guide me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always somebody I knew right away. Sometimes it was somebody I would meet on a trip, and somebody that I would have in a very like unrelated way, some sort of connection with. But like without fail, every big transition in my life has had some important person helping to guide me through. So I would say that, even as an introverted person, like I tend to be, reaching out and connecting with people and having a sense of community and, inner shared trust with people that are important and that understand you is ridiculously helpful for moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And it was one of the biggest things for me too, is having a community, of people who are kind of doing, or living a life where I'm like, oh, I kind of, I think I would like to do that. And even if you yourself don't think it's possible yet, when you start reaching out to these people, they are going to support you and they would love to help you get where you want to go. And so absolutely, community, it changes and it really opens up the perspective to new possibilities that you didn't even know were there. So absolutely. So if our listeners want to know, find out more about you and your work, where can we send them?
I pretty much put all my content and links and whatever it is I'm working on my website, which is just regular www.icoachgreatness.com.
Yeah, of course, we'll link to that. And so thank you for sharing, and thanks for these great. I think it's you really shared some things that we can really do right now, and that's what we love here. It's an action, is having some advice of what we can, like what can we do right now. And the main message that I'm getting from you is like, just do it and do something. anything really. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Jenny. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks. I'm always happy to share great people with the Synaction tribe. So to our listeners, thank you for listening. And if you want to join the revolution, check us out at synaction.com or leave a comment right here. Thank you.